Okay, back at you again with the readings from Enoch. Once again, pause it for yourself, see what the Spirit is saying unto the churches, and read it for yourself. I'm definitely going to stop every so often and give you a little bit of information, just because then you can add it to your own information and you can grow in knowledge. All right, let's get going. So this one's about the revolutions of the luminaries, such as the stars and the sun, etc. Pay attention to this one too, because it just once again shows to show you that the book of Enoch, it should have been canon. It's canon in the Ethiopic Bible for a reason, and in some other Bibles, just not in our Western Civilization Bible. And that God is amazing. So check this out. The Sefer of the revolutions of the luminaries of heaven, according to the respective classes, the respective powers, the respective periods, the respective names, the places where they commenced their progress, and the respective bunch which Uriel, the holy angel, who was with me, explained to me. He who conducted them, the whole account of them, according to every year of the world forever, until a new work shall be effected, which will be eternal. This is the first law of the luminaries. The sun and the light arrive at the gates of heaven, which are on the east, and on the west of it the western gates of heaven. Interesting, because science now tells you that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. Okay, and this book was written before all this modern day science. Okay, uh, so this is what the man got from God. This is what God told him. Okay, I beheld the gates when the sun's. Here we go, keep reading now. I beheld the gates whence the sun goes forth, and the gates where the sun sets, in which the gates also the moon rises and sets, and the conductors of the stars among those who precede them, 6 at the rising and 6 at the setting. So the sun and the moon set at 6 different gates. And we know for a fact that different times, this is the reason we have seasons, because they say that the sun is setting at a different point, and so light is hitting the earth differently, right? So yeah, they say we got 4 seasons, but I'm going with the book of Enoch. We might really have 6 seasons, just because there's 6 different gates that the sun and the moon set in. All right. All these respectively, one after another, are on a level, and numerous windows are on the right and on the left side of the gate. First proceeds forth the great luminary, which is called the sun, the orb of which is as the orb of heaven, the whole of it being replete with splendid and flaming fire. So interesting that it calls the sun an orb, right? And it's probably going to call the moon an orb too. Actually, I haven't read that far, but they try to call the sun a rock, and they try to call the moon a rock. Bruh, I know you ain't never seen a perfectly circular rock in your life. You ain't never seen a perfectly circular rock in your life, brethren. A perfectly spherical rock, a perfect sphere in your life. But when you look at the sun and when you look at the moon, it looks like a perfect sphere, don't it? And even when the light hits it, I know you ain't never seen light hit rock and make it look like that in your life. The moon is not just a regular rock. These people that are lying to you, some of you guys got your eyes blinded, and it's shocking how blinded some people's eyes are, believing in these lies that they tell you. It's an orb, okay? It's got to be an orb. Anyway, let's keep going. Its chariot where it ascends, the wind blows. The sun sets in heaven, and returning by the north to proceed towards the east is conducted so as to enter by that gate, and illuminate the face of heaven. In the same manner it goes forth in the first month by the great gate. So just for you don't know, so there's 3 heavens, right? You've got the heaven, which is the earth. You got the second heavens, which is the stars, and then you've got the heaven where God dwells, which is bigger than stars, around the stars, above space. Okay, so it's talking, when it talks about this heaven, it's talking about the sky, and maybe it's talking about space as well, actually. But in the same manner it goes forth in the first month by the great gate. It goes forth through the fourth of those 6 gates which are at the rising of the sun, and in the 4th gate from which the sun rises in the first month there are 12 open windows from which issue out a flame, when they are open in their proper periods. When the sun rises in heaven, it goes forth through this 4th gate 30 days, and by the 4th gate and the west of heaven on a level which with it descends. During that period the days lengthen from the day, and night is curtailed from the night for 30 days, and then the day is longer by 2 parts than the night. The day is precisely 10 parts, and the night is 8. So this is in accordance with seasons as well. The sun goes forth through this 4th gate and sets. Sorry, don't know who this is. The sun goes forth through this fourth gate and sets in it, and turns to the fifth gate during 30 days, after which it proceeds from and sets in the fifth gate. Then the day becomes lengthened by a second portion, so that it is 11 parts, while the night becomes shortened, and is only 7 parts. The sun now returns to the east, entering into the sixth gate, and rising and setting in the sixth gate 31 days on account of its signs. At that period the day is longer than the night, being twice the night, and becomes 12 parts, but the night is shortened and becomes 6 parts. Then the sun rises up, that the day may be shortened and the night lengthened, and the sun returns toward the east, entering the sixth gate, where it rises and sets for 30 days. When that period is completed, the day becomes shortened precisely 1 part, so that it is 11 parts, while the night is 7 parts. Then the sun goes from the west from that sixth gate and proceeds eastwards, rising in the fifth gate for 30 days, and setting in the again westwards in the fifth gate of the west. At that period the day becomes shortened 2 parts, and is 10 parts, while the night is 8 parts. Then the sun goes from the fifth gate as it sets in the fifth gate of the west, and rises in the fourth gate for 31 days on account of its sign, setting in the west. At that period the day is made equal with the night, and being equal with it, the night becomes 9 parts, and the day 9 parts. Then the sun goes from that gate as it sets in the west, and returning to the east, proceeds by the third gate for 30 days, setting in the west at the third gate. At that period the night is lengthened from the day during 30 mornings, and the day is curtailed from the day during 30 days. The night being 10 parts precisely, and the day 8 parts. The sun now goes from the third gate as it sets in the third gate in the west, by returning to the east, as it proceeds to the second gate for 30 days. In like manner, also the second gate in the west of heaven. At that period the night is 11 parts. So definitely pause it and read it. I'm going to skip forward, because basically what it's doing is telling you how long that the sun is in the sky for different parts of the season, and how long. Basically, we know this, right? In the wintertime, there's more night, right? It becomes dark earlier than it does in the summertime. Okay, and this is basically what it's telling you, talking to you about. Okay, so I'm going to skip some of this, but definitely pause it there. Pause it again here. Okay, read it again. All right, and I'm just going to go down here. This also is that which goes forth, a great luminary, and which is named after its peculiar kind, as Elohim commanded. And thus it goes in and out, neither slackening nor resting, but running on its chariot by day and night. Its light is 7 times brighter than that of the moon, but the dimensions are both equal. So modern science will actually tell you that the dimensions of the sun and the moon are equal. Okay, and I know you've never seen a naturally made rock that had the same dimensions as another naturally made rock. Maybe similar, but not the same exact dimensions, because if you put the moon directly behind the sun, they block out one another. Okay, so that goes to show you that they're not random. They're not just some space rocks that clump together. Oh man, how can people believe these things? It just goes to show you that that's impossible for them to be that. They have to have been scientifically designed. These orbs have to be scientifically designed, all right? Just because the dimensions are both equal. And then also, it's actually science too that it is about 7 times brighter, right? The sun is about 7 times brighter than the moon. Science will even tell you that. So when the moon is full. So there you go again. This guy was not a scientist. He was a man of God, and God told him these things, and science happens to prove it true. Okay, so here we go. Let's keep reading. After this law I beheld another law in an inferior and luminary, the name of which is the moon, the orb of which is the orb of heaven. Its chariot secretly ascends, the wind blows, and the light is given to it by measure. Every month at its exit and entrance becomes changed, and its periods are as the periods of the sun. And as when the moon is full, the light is 7th portion from the light of the sun. Thus it rises, and at its commencement towards the east goes forth for 30 days. So definitely take a picture of this, read it. Okay, it's basically telling you what we know about the moon, that every 30 days or 28 days or so, the moon goes through this portion of becoming full and becoming a 7th of its light, and then it just becomes a full moon. So once again, Enoch is correct with this. So let's start here. Then I saw another progress and the regulations which he effected in the law of the moon, the progress of the moons and everything. Uriel showed me the holy angel who conducted them all. Their stations I wrote down as he showed them to me. I wrote down their months as they occur and the appearance of their light until it is completed in 15 days. In each of its 2 7 portions it completes all its light at rising and at setting. On stated month it changes settings, and on stated months it makes its progress on each. In the moon sets with the sun, and those 2 gates which are in the midst. In the third and fourth gate it goes forth for 7 days. It makes its circuit again and returns to the gate whence the sun goes forth, and at that it completes the whole of its light. Then it declines from the sun and enters in 8 days into the sixth gate from which the sun goes forth. When the sun proceeds to the fourth gate, and it goes forth for 7 days until it passes from the fifth. Again, it returns 7 days from the fourth gate, and completing all its light, declines and passes on by the first gate in 8 days, and returns in 7 days to the fourth gate, from which the sun goes forth. Thus I beheld their stations as according to the fixed order of the months, the sun rises and sets. So these were things that we were just supposed to behold in pureness and righteousness. These weren't even things that we were really supposed to I guess they're for times as well, to help us know the times of the year. So, but anyway, at those times there is an excess of 30 days belonging to the sun and 5 years. All the days belonging to each of the year of the 5 years, when completed, amount to 364 days. So we now know through science that a year is about 365 days. Okay, but it's probably 364 days just because pretty sure God's right. But anyway, this guy, what he said, Enoch, what he said is very, very close to the exact number that scientists will give you for how long a year is, right? In some parts of the world, they actually don't call it 365 days. They call it 364.25 days. Some people call it 364 days, depending on what, where in the world you're from. This is just a Western calendar, a Judean calendar. So, very interesting that this guy who was not a scientist and was just having visions with God and God telling him these things, wrote these things down, and they happen to be in line with what scientists have found out today. And, if you look at what a lot of what scientists say, it's very easy to bring it back to scripture and for it to line up. That's why I love to speak with people who are very scientific but don't believe in God, because I can always bring it back to God. I can always bring their science back to God and back to scripture even, and what God has said before there were scientists. Anyway, so interesting right here as well that he actually adds up. Go ahead and read it for yourself, but right here he's actually adding up and showing why the 365 would make sense actually, right? Because he says, let's go ahead and read it actually. The moon brings on all the years exactly, that their stations may come neither two forwards nor two backwards in a single day, but that the years may be changed with correct position. In 364 days. In 3 years the days are 1,092. In 5 years they are 1,820. And in 8 years 2,912 days. To the moon alone belong in 3 years 1,062 days. And 5 years it has 50 days less, for an additional being made to the 62 days. In 5 years there are 1,770 days, and the days of the moon in 8 years are 2,832 days. For its days in 8 years are less 80 days, which 80 days are its diminution in 8 years. The year then becomes truly complete according to the station of the moon and the station of the sun, which rise in the gates, which rise and set in them for 30 days. Interesting as well, because people actually used to use the moon as the calendar. In some places they still do actually, and not the Judean calendar like we do over here in the Western civilization. So once again, this just proves the book of Enoch. All right, definitely give it a read for yourself. Pause it, get a reading and an understanding. See what it says to you. Much love.